Views expressed by Camaplan podcast guests may not reflect those of Camaplan. Camaplan does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by guests, nor does it endorse or recommend any individual or organization. Camaplan is not an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. You are encouraged to conduct your own due diligence before making investment choices. For any tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other questions, please consult a specialist. Hi, I'm Michael Duncan, and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom. This podcast is brought to you by Camaplan, a self-directed IRA administrator focused on educating investors on how to grow retirement savings faster through alternative investments. In each episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the many roads taken to financial freedom and how they differ for each of our guests. Our goal is to help the listeners learn how they can achieve their own financial freedom through the experience and stories of experts that have done just that. Today's guest is the Profit Answer Man. He teaches people how to ensure they get paid and make a profit a priority. As a certified profit-first professional, he implements a profit-first system that ensures profit comes first. He works with business owners to help them build their path to financial freedom. I am very excited to welcome Rocky Lalvani to the show today. Rocky, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Thank you for coming on. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing why they call you the Profit Answer Man in particular. But before we get there, I would love to just know a little bit more about you. I'm from Philadelphia, so when I saw your name pop up, I automatically assumed you were a boxer. I don't think that's the case necessarily after doing a little bit of research about you, but you can't blame me for trying.
No, I'm familiar with the movie, and I'm not that far from Philly, actually.
Oh,
Pretty
really?
close to, yeah, I'm in Harrisburg, so not
Oh,
very far from you at all.
no.
And grew up watching the movie. As a matter of fact, I think we watched Creed 3 last night. Not as
I
good.
I haven't seen it yet. I loved the first two Creed movies. Haven't gotten around to seeing the third one yet.
I I was half paying attention. It seemed like a longer drag on the first part of the movie to get to it all. But hey, people aren't here to listen to movies, right? They're here to make money.
Unfortunately, I mean,
That's not
making money is great,
unfortunate.
but I love movies, so any excuse to talk about them. But anyway, I would love to just get started by asking you a little bit about how you got to where you are. Learn a little bit more about your history. I know I believe you're an immigrant, and I would just love to hear about that story.
Sure. So my parents immigrated here when I was very young. And of course, when you immigrate, a lot of times you're basically starting over in life, which is kind of what they had to do. Thankfully, they didn't have to start at the bottom, but when we came over, we didn't have a lot of money. So economically, we weren't living on the right side of the tracks. But within a pretty quick amount of time, they were able to do better and to start upgrading their lifestyle as well as a lot of the people around them. And I think that was the unique thing that I grew up with that I didn't understand till much later in life. My parents and their friends talked about money. I just assumed people talked about money. It wasn't until much later that I realized for most people, it is a taboo topic. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about how we make more, how we invest more, how we spend less, and how we negotiate. That's another skill that seems to be missing from many people. So I learned a lot of those lessons growing up, just watching and seeing how other people were building their lives and creating success. And I followed that path. I was very entrepreneurial as a kid, always trying to make a buck. I wanted to live a great lifestyle. So I kind of did that. But unfortunately, you get out of college and the times were very different. Like there were no podcasts, there was
Yeah.
no internet. So trying to learn how to do business was a little bit more difficult. And I didn't know the value of my skill sets and I didn't know how to market them. So I pretty much followed the get a job and do what you're told kind of path. And I did well at that. I always automated my finances up front. So I was constantly saving from day one out of college. And that's what allowed me to build my wealth over time, just basic, simple compounding.
So what was that first job? Like, how did you get, obviously you were able to build your wealth, but how did that start? You got that first job, you started saving from day one. What happened after that?
Well, so when I got that first job, the company had a company stock plan. So I put a little bit of money in the company stock plan. They had a 401k. I'm not sure like what the rules were for joining it, but as soon as I was eligible, I joined that. They had a credit union. So I put a little bit of money into the credit union. My dad handed me a brokerage account. Now, mind you, there was no money really in it. It was like, hey, here's an account.
Yeah.
The one thing that they were really cool at, they would automatically swipe money out of your bank account every month, and they would just invest it in mutual funds. And in the beginning, I started with very little to each of these things. It might have been 1% or 25 or $50. But every time I started to make more and more money, I increased the amounts that were going into savings. And I just continued to do that while I tried to figure out the investment game. And I'll be honest, I didn't do great at that. Made a lot of mistakes that I think most people make, always chasing returns and buying high and selling low instead of
Yeah.
the opposite. So a lot of that, but because my money was automated and everything was happening no matter what happened in life, the math says you're going to get wealthy. I mean, it's really that simple. And it wasn't until later in life, looking backwards, that I realized that one step guaranteed my future.
So where are you now then?
As far as when you say, where am I now?
In life, in your job, and whatever.
I retired from corporate about 4 years ago. I got tired of it. The usual stuff. I always made sure I prioritized time
Hmm.
over the money and the promotions. So I was always like, hey, if you're not going to pay me commensurate to work more, I'm not going to work more. And if you're not going to pay me fair for the work I'm doing and continue to allow that to grow, then I'm just going to work less. Um, so I understood the time versus money game. Few years back, I knew I had built my wealth. I didn't have to work anymore. It was no longer fun. Now, I will say most of the time, I I my job was fine, but it allowed me to do everything else I wanted. So there
Hmm.
wasn't like my job was giving me all my um, excitement or thrills or any joy, so to speak. But it did allow me to have it everywhere else in my life. So it was a trade off. Probably going back a lot further than the 4 years, probably, 8, 9, 10 years ago, I started the conversation of what do I really want to do? Now that I have the freedom to make those choices, and I just went on a journey to explore and to see what that looked like and where it would all work out. And where I finally ended up was when I understood that business owners weren't looking at their finances, they didn't understand what was happening financially in their business, matching it back to those skill sets that I told you that I had that I didn't understand. I live on spreadsheets. Spreadsheets tell me stories. Those stories give me answers and help to make small changes that create big results. So I understand the business finance. I just didn't realize how valuable that skill was to the small business owner. And so I walked away. I partnered with Mike Michalowicz in the Profit First brand. And that's what I do now. I work with small business owners to help them thrive and have more money and more time.
So tell me a little bit about Profit First and why you saw it as something, worthy of investing your time and your freedom into.
So the first thing I learned was business owners weren't looking at their money. So then the question was, do I create my own system, which is totally possible. However, when I looked at doing that, I realized there were a lot of those parts of things that I didn't want to do. And because I had the choice, I said no. So then I looked at partnering with different other possible entities or, programs. And A lot of them just were a lot more than I wanted. They were overwhelming. They were too deep into things I didn't want to do. When I looked at profit first, it was literally the same way I built wealth. The principles are exactly the same. I'm like, oh my God, Mike has taken what I've done and taken it from personal finance to business finance. So that seemed like the perfect thing. He already had an established brand that gave me authority. I'm like, you're the visionary. I'm the implementer. Let's put this together and let's roll. And so they allowed me to build my business how I wanted underneath that umbrella. And so I became certified to be one of their profit first professionals. And that gave me a big umbrella and a lot of tools that I didn't have to create for myself. And I can just use them and go out and do what I do.
So, aside from the obvious, I think by the name of it, can you tell the listeners, what Profit First is? Why is it different?
So, for most people are given by their accountant or by whoever the equation of profit, which is sales minus expenses equals profit, which means it's a leftover, it's an afterthought. But we're all
Yeah.
told pay yourself first. Well, if you're going to pay yourself first, then the equation should be sales minus profit equals expenses. So you're taking your profit first and you're constraining your expenses. Now, mind you, a lot of people get this wrong. They think you're screwing people or underplaying your employees. And it is none of that. It is just saying, hey, my business was designed to be profitable, and I'm going to make sure that it is by constraining my behaviors. The second thing that Profit First does is as soon as money comes in, it sends it to do its job, right? We're told give money a job to do and send it to do it. The same way that I built all those multiple accounts when I got out of college, Profit First takes all the money that comes in and it goes into one account. So you can see how much money came in. It's clear as day. And then it takes it and it puts it into the profit account, the owner's pay account, the tax account, and then the spending account. And by doing that, you have clarity on how much money is for each and what the purpose of that money is. And so you don't get it mixed up. People used to do this 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Your grandparents might have gotten their cash paycheck and they put it in envelopes, the rent envelope, right?
Yeah.
The grocery envelope. It is that exact same concept just implemented for business owners using bank accounts. So it's nothing new. It's just a basic simple system to run your finances. And I think most people get overwhelmed. They don't implement systems and they don't continue to make sure the systems work for them. And that's the problem. And that's true of every single part of business.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So the way that what I'm taking away from this is it's almost less of the fact that you're changing an equation and therefore you're changing, the numbers at different, points in that process, but it's almost more of a like a mindset shift. It's something that is the money is still the same to a certain degree, obviously, but it's really just thinking about the way you look. It's changing the way you think about profit and the way you think about your expenses. Am I right in saying that?
It is. It is a psychological system, right? What happens is, think about it. When you go on a diet, what's the first thing they tell you? Get smaller plates, right?
Yeah.
It's the same concept. Too often in business, we're told you got to spend money to make money. And I think that's a lie we've all been told. And it's usually told to us by salespeople trying to sell us something in our business.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say to a business owner, look, you don't need more resources, learn to be more resourceful, actually sit down and pen out the numbers for your business and stop spending your profit, stop spending your paycheck, right? Don't forget to put money aside for taxes because tax day is coming.
Yeah.
It's literally discipline. That's what it is. And it's a very simple system. And yet, as simple as it is, and you don't need somebody like me to implement it, you can just go do it. Read his book, implement it. I mean, literally from hearing us today, you can practically implement it. People won't do it. People just it it's just people. They don't set up basic, simple things to do that. And the same thing, bring it back to investing. How many people automate their money coming out of their income stream and send it to investments? They don't.
I mean, I think I agree with you on every part of that. I think the tough part is just, discipline. I think that's a really important word. I think it's the right word. And discipline is hard. Discipline can be really, really tough sometimes.
Imagine though, if you could set up a system that every day somehow your body worked out and you didn't do anything.
Oh, it'd be beautiful.
It'd be beautiful.
I'd be
Well,
I'd be in much better shape.
so here's the thing. I can't do that for your exercise, but I can do it for your money because you can automate your money flows.
Yeah.
It is possible. It's automatable and it's actually pretty simple. And if you'll just do that, then you're done.
I mean, I like the sound of it personally. I'm all in. And also, if you happen to know anyone that could automate my body working out, please feel free to send them my way because that all you caught my ear with that. That sounds like $1 million idea right there.
It,
Um,
One of
so,
these days they'll have fitness suits, but I think most of the stuff that they talk about, these electrodes and all, they don't work.
yeah, you're probably right. So what kind of what kind of differences have you noticed from beginning to end when you've worked with these businesses and helped them implement the system?
So I think this is the truth that doesn't get talked about. I've worked with business owners who have been in business 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And at the end of the day, they don't have a lot of money to show for it. I've worked with business owners who have $1 million in revenue, who have $10 million in revenue, and don't have much to show for it. The reality of the situation is most business owners struggle.
Yeah,
Most business owners, they're keeping the doors open, right? They're paying their employees, they're paying everybody else, but they put themselves last. And so they're not getting paid. What we do is we just start small. I mean, let's face it, will you miss a dollar out of 100?
no,
No. So if you've got $1 million, chances are you're not going to miss 10,000.
I believe you. I cannot speak from experience, but I believe you. The math checks out.
The math checks out. So if I keep, if you've got $1 million, and let's take this to the absurdity, if you've got $1 million and I steal 10 grand from you today, you probably wouldn't notice. Well, if I do that on a consistent basis, you'll start to build significant wealth, right?
Yeah.
And so literally set up systems to to overcome yourself and to overcome your behaviors and to just literally take little amounts of money that you will never miss and put it aside because we all piss it away. That's just life.
Yeah, it is. Have you noticed that, getting started is the hardest part? And once you're able to help these businesses, start this process, that there's less for them to overcome?
Yeah. So, do you know what the heaviest weight is at the gym?
No.
The
And
front
that's,
door.
oh, clever. I feel like
Nobody can get through it.
getting very focused on myself, not going to the gym. I feel like this episode is really outing me. But you're not wrong. I couldn't agree with that more. Front door is always the heaviest part.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to. I'm not going to feel bad for you because I think my app says that I lifted 17,000 pounds this morning. A couple at a time. You keep doing it. The next thing you know, it works. Yes, getting started is the hardest part. And it's funny, most business owners, oh, I have to open all these bank accounts. It's so difficult. I'm like, just go do it. And then they come back and they're like, that was easy. I'm like, duh. Like, it wasn't that hard. Here's the cool thing. Profit First is now partnered with Relay Bank. Relay
Hmm.
Bank will automate the whole thing for you. So all you have to do is hook up with them, automate it, tell them what you want to do, and forget about it. And it literally will do your exercises for you.
I The dream come true. I feel like that's unfortunate. I feel like that's going to be my number one takeaway from this podcast. I'm going to walk away and be like, wow, I really wish there was something I could do to just automate my workouts. Um, but I mean, that just goes to show like how useful, this system is, and how simple it can be in reality. Um, but something I love talking about on this show, I'm a firm believer of learning more from mistakes often than you do from your success. And obviously, you've helped a lot of businesses succeed through this system. And I'm wondering if whether it's you, whether it's a mistake you've seen a business do, but something you've experienced that you've learned from and you're able to help people with. I'm wondering if there's a time that you could talk about.
Yeah, honestly, I think for most business owners, they're not paying attention and they're just not showing up and doing the numbers. So just as easily, if you've got $1 million and you don't miss 10,000, it is super easy for all of them to go, oh, I'll just spend $10,000 on that. It'll help me grow my top line. Okay. And
Yeah,
that's literally
I
the
see what you're saying.
conversation that happens all the time. Oh, I'll invest 10,000 in that. It'll make me 50. I guarantee you there's a reason your gym solution doesn't work because it's not that easy. And that's what happens more often than not. Second thing, we all get punched in the face, right? Sales drop for a month. Well, if your sales drop for a month, most of your fixed expenses don't.
Yeah,
And it's very quick and very easy in a business with a little bit of sales drop to lose a ton of money very quickly. And I think that's a big part of what goes wrong. Um, a lot of times, the biggest things we see more often than not, and it happens to people too, they sign up for all these subscription services or the trials and
hmm
they forget about them.
yeah. That's life in the 21st century at its
That's
best.
life. And the next thing you know, you're paying $100 a month for this and $100 a month for that. And then the contract ends. And then you know what happens? It goes to 200 a month.
Yep.
And if you're not paying attention, more often than not, you have a massive leak in your business. So that's the other thing that happens. The next thing that happens is employees are not trained to save money. They are
Yeah.
trained to spend money. All right. When I grew up, I was always told nobody got fired for buying IBM. IBM was the most expensive and maybe not the best solution,
Hmm.
but it was safe. And employees just did the safe because, hey, what do they care? It's not their money
It's fair. Yeah.
and they wouldn't get in trouble. And so, if that's the culture you've created, those are all the problems. You add all four of those up, and boom, it's so easy to go massively negative. So, I think a big part of what we do is accountability. A
Hmm.
big part of what we do is awareness to say, did you know? And then just the Hawkeye watching everything. So, I like to tell a lot of stories about kind of flying. I'm not a pilot, but just the whole concept of it really comes together. So when I look at like business, it's like taking off in an airplane, right? In the beginning, you have to expend a lot of energy to get that plane rolling down the runway. And halfway down the runway, it's rumbling, the engines are screaming. You look out the window, and while you're going 100 miles an hour, you're still on the ground.
Yeah.
Most people, that's where they spend their time. And if you can't get the momentum to get up, it feels like you're constantly doing that. Once you get the momentum to come off the ground, things get easier and things really take off. But here's the question: when you took off, did you know where you were going? In other words, did you have a business plan that said, I'm going from here to here, and this is how much fuel slash cash I need to burn to get to where I need to go? Most people don't do that. And even if they do, they always have the most optimistic outcomes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Instead of the most pessimistic, they're not planning for failure. They're not planning for bad weather, right? So here you are, you figure out, okay, I have enough cash, but there are a whole bunch of other things that businesses need to look at, and most of them don't. Most business owners can't tell you when their next order is coming in. They can't tell you what the math of their business is. How much do I have to spend on advertising? What's my best lead source? What does it cost me? How often do people convert? How much do people? That's the other thing. Business owners are so afraid to raise their prices. It's only been inflation in the
Hmm.
last 2 years that have really given business owners the reality check that if you don't raise prices or if you don't understand your pricing, you're in big trouble. And I think that is the one positive of COVID is they've had to come to grips with that. So again, it's still understanding the math of the business, which is what most people don't get. And I didn't understand this. That was my aha. I assume most business owners understood the business of business. They
Hmm.
don't. Most business owners love what they do, and
Yeah.
accounting isn't on the list.
Yeah.
So if you look at who's the most successful investor, I would go with Warren Buffett.
That's fine with me. It's a good
Okay.
answer.
Do you know what he does all day?
No. No, I don't.
He reads financial statements. He understands the business's financial statements probably better than the businesses do. Right? He knows how to compare them. He knows he's been doing this for probably what 70 plus years. You
Yeah.
do something for 70 plus years, you get very good at it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what he's doing. But how many business owners are doing that for their own business? They're not. They don't even have financial statements.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. And something you said kind of prompted me to think about the fact that, yeah, most business owners, the thing that they're good at probably isn't necessarily running a business. It's whatever their business specializes in, a lot of the time anyway. And you can become good at running a business, but that doesn't mean you're going to be great at every aspect of it, including most likely the most boring stuff, which most likely includes reading financial reports.
Most people do what they love and ignore what they hate.
Yeah, yeah.
And for most business owners, what they love is not the accounting.
No.
And that creates a problem. Most of them go, "Hey, I got money in the bank, life is good." Until it isn't.
It's very well said, honestly. Very well said. Um, Now, one last thing before I let you tell the listeners all about where they can find you, where they can reach out to you, is something I ask every guest that comes on here, and that is simply, what does financial freedom mean to you?
So for me, financial freedom is time freedom.
Hmm.
It's the ability to do what I want, when I want, how I want, the ability to say no, and to be in control of my day and how I spend it, and not being stuck to someone else or something else or any of those types of things. And it's very rare for people to have financial freedom in the
Yeah.
sense that even if you're president of a company, right? You're beholden to the board of directors, to the
Hmm.
stock market, to this or that. Even people who have wealthy careers, even doctors, right? They're still beholden. They got to show up and do things. So having the ability to design your life with total choices is awesome. And you don't have to have millions upon millions of dollars to do that. If you want to live more of a beach bum life, you can. And that's okay too. Just
Absolutely.
make that decision. Your financial freedom number is a choice you get to make.
I really like that. And I'm also definitely going to steal the ability to say no because I really like that as well.
Yes.
So very well said. Thank you. I love asking that question, even though, every answer is kind of the same. Every answer also differs in a lot of ways that I feel like is useful. And it's I'm learning. But finally, Rocky, could you please tell the listeners where they can find you? And of course, this information will also be available in the description of this episode. But please tell them where they can find you.
So, if you are a business owner, the Profit Answer Man podcast is where we share all of the things that we do for our clients. We give it all away to you. For those of you on the financial freedom journey, I also have a podcast called Richer Soul. It was kind of the tagline of "You got rich, now what?"
I like that name. I like that a lot, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, probably not going to steal it. I've already got a name, but who knows? But Rocky, thank you so much. Sorry, did I interrupt you? Were you
Mm.
okay? Thank you so much for coming on. I learned a lot today. I probably could have listened to you talking about profit first and just that mindset switch for a while. But thank you so much for coming on today. I had a wonderful time, and thank you for sharing your time with me and my audience. And as always, thanks for listening to The Road to Financial Freedom. If you enjoyed this show, please support the podcast by remembering to rate, review, and subscribe. You can keep up to date with us on Facebook or Instagram at Road to Financial Freedom Podcast. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. If you like what you're hearing on The Road to Financial Freedom and want to learn more about self-directed IRAs and 401ks, click the link in the description to download a free toolkit with everything you need to get started.